Welcome to the first episode of Speak Up for Julian. It's a podcast you probably don't want to be part of. I'd rather we not. I'd rather not have this podcast. But here we are to discuss how do we end bullying in schools. There's going to be a lot of other topics here. We're going to range from everything concerning bullying in schools, mental health, how we interact with one another, and music, lots and lots of music. So this first episode we're calling Honoring Julian, a call to end bullying and support mental health. That covers a lot, I know. So here's the thing. May 23rd of 2024, we lost our 14-year-old son, Julian, to suicide. This wasn't quick. We are no strangers to reaching out for help. We are no strangers to seeking therapy. We are no strangers to talking things out. And sometimes that doesn't get us where we need to be. So we'd had issues in the school for several years. Lisa, Julian's mother, and I have been very active in our kids' schools since kindergarten. And when things started to ratchet up in the early 2020s, we all know what I'm talking about, then I got more involved at the district level. So reviewing policies and even attempting a run for school board in 2022. To take you back to that, I made a very conscious decision at that point that the stress on my family was not worth what I was putting into running for school board. So even after withdrawing from all of that and focusing entirely on our own family, we still ended up here. So we're going to talk about the different things that led us to this point. All the things we did right, and all the things we did wrong. All the things the school did right, and all the things the school didn't do right. There's going to be a lot of subjects that we talk about. We're going to kick this off. We're going to get into a few things today. But this is going to be a roughly weekly-ish series, and I will happily take topics for discussion. And you know what? This is my first time doing any of this, so I'm not really sure where any of this goes. We'll invite some guest speakers, and we'll just see what kind of difference we can make. All right. So for those of you that are going to stick around for a little bit more, I would like to let you know about the location. So this room that I'm in, this was Julian's room. The red color, that's one that he picked out. Actually, he and I kind of picked that one out together because that's the same color and it's in my home office. But this was Julian's bedroom. This is a place that we feel a little closer to him. And Lisa and I actually went through all those things that we can imagine we would do as parents after losing a child. And what do we do with their room and their things? Well, to be quite honest, I took care of a lot of that the night that we lost Julian because obviously, my anger got the best of me, and I destroyed a lot of things. We've patched the holes. I ripped down the closet doors. We actually did something different with the closet. So I'll take you on a little tour of what we now call Julian's music room. So up behind me are the majority, not the entirety, but the majority of Julian's concert, or there are a few non-concert music shirts up there. We had
originally thought that we would take all of those shirts and have them turned into a memory quilt. And our ambitions were a little bit too big. When we found out that would not work, we just said, okay, well, until we figure out what else to do, we're just going to hang them on some hooks on the wall. And so we counted up the shirts and I planned out the wall and I measured the spaces and everything. And we have 33 pegs spaced out. And once I had them laid out, we said, well, it kind of looks like a merch wall. All we really need to do is put the wire cage behind it, and then it'll be better than if it were done into a quilt. So beyond that, this room is set up that if you enjoy music, you'll see some things up on the walls. We have some instruments hanging in the closet. I've been learning to play guitar terribly for a while. Julian was just learning to play bass, and we figured that his room could be a nice tribute to the kind of things that he liked, that we liked, and whatever else we can use to keep his memory alive. Because again, this whole thing is about speaking up for children that can't speak up for themselves. And obviously it's too late for Julian, but I'd be willing to bet that we can help a lot of others. So now I think it's probably a good time, since I've introduced you to the room and the backdrop, tell you a little bit more, for those of you that didn't know Julian, about him. So Julian was born on February 6th, 2010. So if I get all this together and can actually launch this off tomorrow, then currently today is February 5th, it'll be 15 years from the day he was born. He was always a very intelligent kid, very much self-motivated and driven, didn't like to be held so much as a baby, and always wanted to figure out how everything worked and do it himself. So even when he got started in school, we used to call him our little politician, because he never met a stranger at that age. That was a little dangerous too, but he would go up to anybody and tell them his life story. Now at 4 and 5 years old, there's not a whole lot to tell, but amazingly, there would always be a lot to tell. So anyway, going through school, he was pretty much always a straight A kid. Got into gate classes when they were first available, and always had a very easy time with school. So when he first started getting into video games, made sure that my kids had an original Nintendo Entertainment System to play some Super Mario Brothers, and he kind of took to that a lot. So he was definitely my avid video gamer. He would get all of his regular school stuff done so that he could dive into a bunch of worlds that I never even got into. It was interesting as he went through like the Legend of Zelda games, because that was stuff that we could talk about, stuff that we played together. But he was all into several different storylines with multiple games. Always reading. Lisa is definitely much more of a reader than I am. The running joke is that I don't actually read anything, but I tend to read a lot of technical things. Julian had always read avidly. By the time he was in second grade, there was a reading competition, and it was kind of like the book at stamps and things. You read so many books, and you log down how many books you read, how many pages per day. And that year, both Jolie and Julian were reading so many books that they actually created an additional award for what they did. So Julian was a huge fan of the Harry Potter books, and really started falling out on that within the last few years, teenage years, what they are. And he started getting into martial arts for a little bit because I teach karate. And I talked him into coming try out the class. He liked it quite a bit. Then for a few different reasons, including COVID being one of them, he kind of fell out of it and started back up into it a few years ago and was doing quite well. So that's a little bit more about Julian, all on the positive side. And the other parts are that we started into therapy around 2021 during the pandemic. He was feeling too isolated and depression set in. And so we started into therapy. It was a first for all of us. And it was the kind of thing that he hated doing. And it was, of course, weird because nobody else in the family had done anything like that. Slowly, we kind of got away from the stigma ourselves. And it is so weird to say that even when we were reaching out for mental health help, that we still couldn't get out of our own stigma of thinking that there was something wrong. So how tough is that for people that really feel like they have nothing wrong to look at somebody that's getting therapy and thinking, well, there must really be something wrong with them. We've got a lot of work to do on that front. So through all that, we went through some really rough patches. Julian went back into school in 2022. And that's when the bullying started. So I'll have an entirely separate segment on the specifics of what happened. But for somebody that's already having a rough time, and then to be given a harder time, and then to reach out for help, and then for the organization that's supposed to help ignoring it repeatedly, that's got to take a toll on a person's mental health. Then, of course, it was. We were doing a lot better. And in fact, we'd stopped going to therapy for quite a while, and things were looking really good. So that's why earlier when I said it didn't happen fast, even though we lost him very suddenly, it wasn't like it completely came out of the blue. It simply was something that he camouflaged too well. So there's a little bit more into who Julian was, and we'll talk about a few more subjects before we call this podcast done. So now's probably a good time to talk about what can we do here? Unfortunately, I don't have a great answer for that, but yes, I'm working on it. One of the first things, and if I can play around with this stuff, I'm going to try to put a thing up here for you to click on, which will take you to Julian's website, honoring-julian.com. So honoring-julian.com is the website that I've built. Unfortunately, it does not have a whole lot actively happening on it right now. What I do have on the Get Involved page are links to a whole bunch of organizations that are currently working against these things. Now, whether or not I think enough is being done or how it goes about, that's exactly what I'm looking at, because I already looked into what do I do to start my own charitable organization. And then I looked into all of the existing ones and all of the work that they've been doing, and I can follow in some footsteps, or we can try to do something different. So between these organizations, I've been reaching out. If you can reach out to anybody at the Jason Foundation, or Stand for the Silent, or the Trevor Project, or the Jen Foundation, or the Tyler Clementi Foundation, or Stop Out Bullying, or the Bully Project, I've already got a few contacts at a few other organizations. But here's the thing. There's a lot of organizations right now talking about mental health, talking about equity, talking about bullying and stopping bullying in schools and how to report these things. So with all that, what do we add to that? I'm not really sure. But one of the things I've already done repeatedly is show parents where to go and how to address the school or the district, or even go above that if you're not getting what you need, because that's the stuff that I did not do as a parent. That I thought I was doing all the right steps, but I was not being loud enough. I was trying to go through all of the correct channels and fill out the forms that I was supposed to fill out and play by the rules. So what I want to do is I want to enable people to do more than I did. I want schools to start taking responsibility. I want parents to start taking responsibility too. That's an entirely different subject we'll spend an entire episode on. But the big thing that I'm going to be asking for is that if you're seeing this, and this has meant anything to you, that you share it. That it's painful and it's awkward. But if you think that it's something that needs to be addressed, as I do, as a lot of people do, then what I want you to do is help this become a grassroots movement. I am not going to ask for any money. I will refer you to other organizations that are currently doing things, but I will not be monetizing any of this. So take a look at the website, send me some feedback. If you have an issue that you haven't been able to get help with, there's an intake form there. Feel free to fill it out. The worst that can happen is I don't get back to it, but I have yet to find out what anybody else really needs. The local ones that I've gotten with, that's easy. Anybody that's in our current school district. But beyond that, if somebody is banging their head against the wall because they know that things are happening to their children that should be prevented by people that are charged with their care, then we need to make sure that accountability is had. We can't just keep brushing it all off. If you haven't looked outside on the news and social media being is what it is, there's not a lot of kindness going around right now. And with everything that we've been through, all of the anger that I've been working with, it was very simple to realize that this doesn't get fixed with hate. Hate is what's making this worse. The only way that we fix this is with love. So that's the message that's on the back of each of the memorial guitar picks that we had made up. That's the message that we want to carry, is that if we put love above everything else, it really will fix so many things. So what are the things you can do? You can go to the website honoringjulian.com. You can take a look at it. You can give me some feedback. You can look at any of the other organizations that are on there. Also, if you are on there and you are feeling exceptionally depressed yourself, help is only a few buttons away. On Julia's website, there are embedded hot links for 988 chat rooms. Sorry, not chat rooms, but 988 text and chat resources. So on Julian's website, you can click one of those buttons. Obviously, you can pick up a phone and text 988. If you need something, there are things out there. What I want is for people to be able to find those things they need before it's too late. One more personal item before we close this out. I know I haven't really leaned back too much, but if you happen to notice the shirt that I'm wearing, it's a Slaughter to Prevail shirt that Julian got at Welcome to Rockville last year. And it's one of the shirts that I opted to keep instead of putting up on the wall. The sad fact is that when we went to go get the merch that he wanted, and he wanted this shirt, and he wanted it in a small, they didn't have it in a small. And so they had it in a medium. And of course I said, don't worry, bud, you'll grow into it. So yeah, there's a bunch of reasons that I keep this shirt. But this shirt you will happen to see is the same shirt that he was wearing in the picture that I isolated for his guitar picks. And in some later episodes, you're going to see me doing some breakdowns of some Dorchester School District 2 board meetings and anything that has happened after we lost Julian and I've been at the school board meetings. This is the shirt that I wear to go address the school board. Well, I'd like to leave you with a few last things. First off, if you've made it this far, or really even if you only watched the first 3 minutes, thank you for being here. If you've gotten anything out of this, and I know there's not a lot of information in this one, subsequent episodes are going to have a little bit more details. I would love to hear about whatever topics that y'all would like covered. But if you've shared this, thank you immensely. And if you happen to be a networked individual and you have shared this with your network and you've asked your network to likewise share as well, thank you so much more for that. So with this is going to be the Speak Up for Julian podcast. The website is honoringjulian.com. honoring-julian.com. I know I don't have all the answers. Of course, none of us do. But collectively, we have a lot more answers than any of us knows. So I hope that we can work together and we can start making a change early on in the lives of our next generation. So if you have kids that are in school or will be in school, of course, you have a lot more skin in the game when it comes to holding schools accountable for behavior that should be corrected within the walls of the schools. And not to go down the rabbit hole, but I think that starting early creates a ripple. So if we can collectively do this, if we start to make these differences early on in their lives, that's how we succeed. Anyway, thank you very much for watching and stay tuned for the next one.